Hey guys, Pogo here, and welcome to episode 6 of the Bukkit Coding Remastered series. In this episode, we're going to continue the work that we started in the previous episode. In the previous episode, we got the configuration file working. You can see here that we load the configuration file, and then here we actually get the message from the configuration file, translate the color codes, and then send it to the player. So instead of hard coding it, it is now part of the configuration file, which we can see right here. So now in this video, we want to make these. We want to make the message be configurable in game, because the current issue is that if you decide to change the message in the configuration file, you would have to reload the server in order for that to work. Reload or restart the server, and that will disrupt whatever players are doing. In some cases, it's a minor convenience. In some cases, you may have games running or certain things that can't sustain a reload, and you really don't want that to happen. So it's not very hard to enable us to configure or modify the configuration file in game. And the other thing is reloading the configuration file. So for example, if you decide to modify the configuration file directly like this, and again, right now the only way to change the message is to modify the file itself, which is not very convenient if you're in game. But the problem is that we can't reload it either, because if you change the message, it won't immediately apply like you might think it would. So we also need to implement that. These are both going to be commands. There's going to be the set motd command and the reload motd command. And that is what we're going to do today. So we have looked at commands a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and write the on command signature. If you haven't memorized it by now, don't worry, you will, I promise. It is this: public boolean on command, command sender, command cmd, string command label, string array args. And we need to go ahead and import, make sure you import the command, not the material command. And we'll write return true at the bottom. So this is our first real, look at a command. And essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to write the command information, and we're going to have it do different things. And I think that to make it a little bit more of a challenge, we're going to have one command. We're going to have, it's just going to be motd. And, you can write like this. You can write, so if you write /motd, it'll display, help information. So it'll basically say, use this command to do this, and use this command to do this. If they write /motd set, and then their message sets the, or we'll say set the motd to message. So whatever they write for us is what we will use. If they use /motd reload, then that'll reload the config file. And that's all we really need for now. There's other things that we could do, I suppose, but that's good enough. So first, as we always do, is we say if cmd.getName equals ignore case motd. So if it is the motd command, then at this point we know at least it's the base command. But now we need to check to see which command they're trying to use. Are they trying to use the regular old command? Are they trying to use the set command? Or are they trying to use the reload command? So that's what we're going to check now. This string array args, we haven't looked at it yet, but we're going to look at it right now. That is a string array, and if you don't know what an array is, I do have a video in my Java series about arrays, so I would definitely watch it because it will explain everything. But args contains all of the different arguments that come after the command. So for example, if I write /motd by itself, then args would be empty. If I write /motd set with nothing after it, then set would be the first argument, and there would be nothing else. If I write /motd set this is a test, then set would be the first argument, this would be the second, is would be the third, a the fourth, and test the fifth. So the idea is that essentially it splits your message at the space and sticks it into an array of arguments. And this makes it really easy to process different commands, especially if they have a lot of different arguments in them. And this will make more sense, obviously, once we actually apply it, which is exactly what we're going to do right now. Okay. And I just want to make sure if I didn't mention this part right here. I don't remember if I've mentioned it before. CMD is an instance of command, which just represents some command on the server, and I'm basically checking to see if the name of the command is the name of the command that was run is equal to MOTD. And equals ignore case says I could write MOTD in all caps or in all lowercase or a combination, and it would still work, because we don't really care if they write, MOTD or MOTD or whatever they write. Okay. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say if args.length is 0. So if args.length is equal to 0, then they've not given us any arguments, and in that case, it's the first message. We want to display the help information. And this is pretty easy. We can just do sender.sendMessage, and we can do, we can put a nice color in there. We can say /MOTD, and we can actually just copy this right here because I actually kind of wrote it out. And this, we would probably want this to be on 2 different lines. So, we'll call send message twice, or you can, give it a string array. Actually, I don't want it to be too confusing, but you can give an array of strings. It's not very well formatted. Let's just send it twice. I don't want to create any confusion. And we'll send checkcolor.gold, and there's the second message. So if they say no arguments, then they're trying to set or reload. So in the other case, and I guess we could just say return true right there. So we'll immediately stop running the code, or we'll stop running the method. So if they say no arguments, if they just write /MOTD, then it will send them the help information and go away. So when we get to this point right here where my comment is, we know that they've entered some sort of argument, because if they didn't, then it would get picked up by this if statement, and then the code would stop executing right there. So now we need to decide what exactly they were trying to do. We can go ahead and say if args0 equals case set, and then we can say else if args0 equals case reload, and then we can have an else statement. And by the way, you don't need the return true. You could actually make this an else if, but it doesn't really make a difference. Now, the idea is, in this case, args0 again is the very first argument that they type in. So if it's set, if they're typing /MOTD set, then we want to allow them to set the message. If they're typing reload, we want them to reload. Otherwise, this means right here that they've typed something invalid. Maybe they've typed /MOTD foo, or something like that. And we want to just send them a message, and we can say invalid, subcommand, or invalid operations, probably better. Just so they know that they've entered something wrong. You always want to give output for your plugins, because if you run a command and you don't get any output, or you don't get enough output, then you can be a little bit confused and you're not quite sure if it worked. Okay. So now let's work with reload first, because that's a little bit easier. So if the argument is reload, all we want to do is reload the configuration file. And of course we can just call reload config, and we can send the message, and we'll say, we can put this in green, and we'll say reloaded config. Again, it's always good to send messages so that you know that the config was reloaded. Because otherwise you might not know, and I guess you'd have to close and reopen, or you'd have to disconnect and reconnect to the server, and we don't want that to happen. Now the case of set is definitely more difficult, because they can enter as many words as they want, and we have to handle for that. So the idea is that everything that they type after the word set is going to be part of the MOTD. So if I write /MOTD set and B, this is a test. Then if we were to take a look at the array, the string array, set would be args0, NB this would be 1, is would be 2, A would be 3, and test would be 4. So essentially what we need to do here is we need to say that, we know that args0 is equal to set, so we want to go from args1 and on and use that as their message. But first of all, we should say if args.length is 1, not 0, if args.length is 1, it means that they've only typed in the word set. It means that there's exactly one argument, and it has to be the word set. That means that they didn't give us a message, and we should tell them that they need to give us a message. So in red, we will tell them you must enter a message, or something like that. And then otherwise, we could just say return true. And now here, basically we need to concatenate all of the future arguments, or all of the arguments after that. We need to add them all together into one big string. This part is a little bit weird, so don't worry about it too much, but we're going to say string message is an empty string, and then we're going to use a for loop. So we're going to start I at 1, and we're going to say that I is less than args.length, I++. We're starting at 1 because args0 is the word set, as we saw, and we don't want to include that in our message. And we just say here, message plus equals args at index I, and then we'll add a space in there. So the idea is we're basically going from args1, which is this, in this case, to the length -1, which is, test, and we're adding all the messages, or adding all of the individual words to make a message. The last thing we want to do is say message equals message.trim. That will get rid of the extra space that we add. And again, don't worry about this too much if it's a little bit confusing, because it is a little bit confusing. But now what we want to do is we have our message. This variable message contains the message that the user typed in with the command. So we want to go ahead and do getConfig.set. And when we do set, we first specify the path, and then we specify the value. The value is, of course, going to be message, and the path is going to be right there, message. So when we get string message, we can look in the config and see there's message. So I'm setting the value message to be equal to the message. And message is, of course, a string, so it will insert it correctly. And we need to call save config. This is so important. I've forgotten it a lot, and I know that a lot of people also forget it a lot, because you'll be very confused when the configuration file does not reflect what the user did, what command they entered, or whatever it was. So you need to make sure that you save it, or else you'll spend a lot of time looking and you'll notice that you happen to miss that one line. So once the configuration file is saved, we want to, of course, send a message, because it's always good to send a message, and we'll say set MOTD. And the other thing is reload config right there, because now when they go to join the server again, we're setting the configuration, we're setting message, we're saving the configuration file, and then we need to reload it again, or else the user would have to reload the server or have to run /motd reload. So we're going to automatically reload it for them, so it'll be completely ready. And of course this makes sense to us. Okay, so now we have that part done. There's nothing to do. Actually, in the plugin.yml, we need to register the commands. So to register a command, you do commands. This is a section. And then you're going to do the name of your command, which is, in this case, MOTD. And you need a, we'll do usage first, which is /command. And then it's either going to be a set or reload. And then an optional message. This part's not important, but the idea is that when you see something in diamond brackets, it's required. When you see something in square brackets, it's not required. and this pipe means or. So you're going to type the command, and then you're going to write set or reload, but that's optional, and then the message is optional. If you're using set, then of course it would be required. Then we have the description. Let me just make sure I spelled that right. Description, yeah, I think so. The description will be manage the MOTD plugin. And then you can also supply aliases. So if you want to give, like manage MOTD, for example. So if I type /MOTD or /manage MOTD, either one will do the exact same thing. And that's another interesting feature. You can have a short version and a longer version of a command, and they would both do the exact same thing. So let's call this version 1.0.2, since we did update it a little bit. There's nothing to do in the config.yml. So let's test this. We have quite a bit of testing to make sure that all of these commands do work. So I'm going to export the jar file to the server, motd.jar, and give me about 30 seconds to get everything running. I don't think you guys need to see that. Alright, so we are all set up here. Notice first of all that in the server we have enabling MOTD version 1.0.2. That is the latest version. You saw I just changed it a minute ago, and there's no errors to be seen at all, which means that we are on the right track so far. The other thing to note is that we have Minecraft open and the server is running. So let's go ahead and join and see how everything works out. So when I go ahead and join, you'll see it says have fun on the server, which means that we did not break what we had before, which is always good. The code that we have before still works perfectly fine, and that is great. So let's just go take a look. I want to have the configuration file readily available because we're going to be looking at it a couple of times, and you can see there it says in yellow have fun on the server, which is exactly what we thought it would say. Let's test out the command. When I run /motd, it does in fact give me the help information and nothing else, which is exactly what we want. There's no error given, which is very good, and it does actually recognize the command, which means that we did register it. You can see that it tells you the important information, and so let's go ahead and try it. So first we'll try setting the MOTD, and we're going to say in the color to testing. And it says set MOTD. Now, theoretically, if I were to leave and join again, then the new MOTD should take effect. And indeed it has. It says testing in dark green. And if we look inside of the configuration file, we'll see that it's now changed. It says and to testing, which is exactly what we typed in. But that's only one word, so let's try it with something that involves more words. So we're going to say and to this is a, and then in 3, test, just like that. And theoretically we should get 2 different colors in a different message, and indeed we do when we join. You saw I did not reload the server, I did not restart the server. Everything is perfectly fine. And if we look in the config file, we get the exact same message that we typed in without having to actually type it into the file directly. So I guess the last thing to test, quickly, if I do MOTD set, you'll see that if I don't give any message, that it does give me an error. It says you must enter a message, which is very good. If I do /MOTD foo, it says invalid operation, I can assure you that any invalid operation will give you that message. /MOTD bar, whatever you want to do. And I guess the last thing to test is the reload. So the idea would be that we open up the configuration file, we modify the message here, and then we call reload. So if for whatever reason you want to modify the message in the file instead of on the server, then we want to have support for that too. So in this case, we're going to say in the color, why not 5? In the color 5, or first we'll say n for config files are cool. So that's our message. It's in 4 different colors. So I saved the configuration.yml, and just to quickly show you, when I leave and join, the new message has not taken effect. So it does not work automatically, just as we thought. I'll run reload, and it says reloaded config, and you'll see the server itself didn't reload or restart or anything. and it took less than a second. But if I join, you'll see it now says config files are cool in different colors, which is exactly what we wrote in the text file. So that is all for this video. We got a look at some more advanced commands and also a look at dealing with configuration files, or more configuration files. We learned how to set and reload configuration files, which is very important because almost all of the plugins that you make want to be able to set, get, and dynamically reload information. So as always, subscribe if you want to see more, comment with what you want to learn. If you like this video, click the like button, and I'll see you guys soon with some more coding. Bye for now.